Cemeteries are meant to be places of peace, rest, and remembrance. But some cemeteries across the United States hold darker secrets. Whispers in the wind, shadows moving among tombstones, and chilling apparitions seen at midnight tell stories of restless souls who have not found peace. From unsolved murders to tragic accidents, haunted cemeteries are places where the line between the living and the dead blurs. Tonight, we explore 20 haunted cemeteries across America where the past refuses to stay buried. Cemeteries are quiet by nature, but in the stillness, some locations vibrate with a presence that cannot be explained. Across the United States, old cemeteries hide restless spirits. Some were sites of tragedy, where countless lives were lost too soon. Others were home to infamous criminals or tragic figures whose stories continue beyond the grave. Visitors often report ghostly apparitions, unexplained noises, cold drafts, and the feeling of being watched from between tombstones. Some cemeteries are so active that even the bravest dare not visit after sunset. Imagine walking along an old cemetery path at night. The moon casts pale light over cracked gravestones, and a soft wind whispers through the trees. You hear footsteps behind you, though no one is there. A shadow moves between the tombstones, lingering a moment before disappearing into the darkness. Is it simply your imagination, or is Samania or something following you? As we explore these 20 haunted cemeteries, picture moonlit paths, broken gates, and the lingering presence of souls who have unfinished business. Before we begin, ask yourself if you were alone in a cemetery and heard someone whisper your name from the shadows, would you investigate or run? Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York, stretches across rolling hills and shaded groves, a place where history and memory intertwine. Founded in the early 19th century, it is one of the oldest cemeteries in the city. Home to elaborate tombs, weathered gravestones, and grand mausoleums that reflect a bygone era. Walking through its winding paths, visitors encounter a landscape of quiet beauty and solemn reverence. Yet there is an unmistakable sense of lingering presence, as if the stories of those interred here continue to echo across time. Even during the day, the cemetery carries an air of mystery. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy of trees, casting shifting shadows across the stone markers. Moss and lichen cling to statues, while pathways are lined with towering monuments that seem to watch silently. Some visitors report the sensation of being followed, of eyes upon them even when no one is in sight. Footsteps on gravel are sometimes accompanied by fleeting shadows, movements too subtle to identify, yet enough to stir the imagination and leave a lasting impression of something beyond the ordinary. The mausoleums and crypts hold a particular fascination. These structures, often ornate and imposing, are designed to preserve memory and honor the dead. Within their stone walls, however, the air can feel inexplicably cold, carrying a weight that contrasts with the calm weather outside. Visitors describe sudden chills and goosebumps as they pass through, accompanied by the softest whispers, faint and indistinct, drifting through corridors where no one walks. The atmosphere is one of stillness and anticipation, as if the cemetery itself is aware of each step, each breath. The layout of Greenwood enhances its sense of mystery. Hills rise and fall, creating pockets of shadow where the eye struggles to penetrate. Trees sway in the breeze, producing whispers of their own, blending with the faint sounds of the city in the distance. Paths curve around tombs and gardens, guiding visitors into secluded areas where silence is almost absolute. In these spaces, ordinary sounds become amplified. A creaking branch or distant flutter of wings can take on a significance that feels otherworldly, leaving a sense that the cemetery holds secrets not readily visible. Reports of shadowy figures are common among those who explore Greenwood. These figures are often described as moving silently between graves, their forms fleeting and undefined. They appear near mausoleums, among gravestones, and sometimes along paths that have not been walked in decades. Witnesses frequently mention the sudden disappearance of these apparitions when approached, leaving behind only the sensation that something or something is present, watching, or retracing footsteps from the past. The history of Greenwood Cemetery contributes to its enduring aura. It has witnessed generations of Brooklyn residents, prominent figures, and ordinary citizens alike. Epidemics, personal tragedies, and the passage of time have left their mark, imbuing the landscape with memories that extend beyond the living. The interplay of natural beauty, architectural grandeur, and human history creates an environment where the boundary between past and present feels fluid. It is a space where stories linger, waiting for attention, and where visitors sense a connection that is as emotional as it is mysterious. As evening falls, the cemetery transforms. Shadows lengthen across monuments, and the air cools. The sound of distant traffic fades into the background, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. Many who explore during this time describe a heightened awareness of their surroundings, noticing subtle movements and fleeting forms that disappear when looked at directly. Whispers and cold drafts seem to emerge from nowhere, enhancing the feeling that the cemetery is alive with presence, a living memory of those long gone. The combination of artistry and decay adds to Greenwood's atmosphere. Statues of angels and grieving figures, worn by time and weather, appear almost lifelike in the shifting light. Gravestones tilt and crumble, yet their inscriptions remain, speaking across centuries. The contrast between the permanence of stone and the ephemerality of life reinforces the sense that the cemetery is a place where history persists, where moments of human emotion are etched into the landscape and occasionally manifest in ways that defy explanation. Visitors often reflect on the duality of Greenwood Cemetery. It is a place of peace and remembrance, yet it carries an undeniable edge of mystery. Every shadow, every whisper, and every chill becomes part of an immersive experience, connecting those who walk the paths to a past that is both tangible and elusive. The presence of unexplained phenomena, shadowy figures, sudden drafts, and faint voices heightens awareness of the cemetery's depth, encouraging contemplation and curiosity. Greenwood endures as a testament to history, memory, and the subtle persistence of the past. Its tombs and crypts hold stories that continue to resonate, and its pathways invite visitors to experience a space that is both serene and haunting. As night falls over Brooklyn, the trees cast long, dark silhouettes, and the cemetery breathes with a quiet life of its own. Greenwood Cemetery remains a place where the living can feel the echoes of those who came before. A place where shadows move silently, whispers linger, and the presence of history and the unexplained coexist in delicate balance. Boot Hill Cemetery in Arizona stands as a silent testament to the tumultuous days of the Wild West, where lawlessness and rugged survival shaped the lives of outlaws, gunslingers, and pioneers alike. Nestled on a windswept hill, the cemetery is marked by weathered wooden headstones and sun-bleached graves, each telling the story of a life cut short amidst chaos and frontier justice. The desert surrounding it stretches endlessly, amplifying the isolation and the eerie atmosphere that clings to the site long after sunset. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the uneven ground, the cemetery seems to awaken. Visitors often speak of feeling a sudden shift in the air, as though unseen eyes watch every movement. The silence is punctuated by the occasional creak of old wood or the whisper of the desert wind, carrying with it the faint echo of lives long gone. Some claim to hear phantom footsteps tracing the gravel paths, the ghostly rhythm of boots that once chased lawbreakers or fled from danger. Figures of the past are said to manifest near the oldest graves. Shadowy forms in period attire appear for fleeting moments, fading like mist when approached. These apparitions are often described as outlaws and gunfighters, their presence a reminder of the violent and unpredictable lives they led. On rare occasions, the sharp crack of phantom gunfire cuts through the stillness of night, startling those who wander too close to the graves. Though the shots leave no mark on the earth, they resonate with history, echoing the dangerous world that once surrounded this resting place. The history of Boot Hill Cemetery is inseparable from the legends of the Wild West. Many buried here met violent ends in saloons, streets, or duels, their stories immortalized in the barren desert landscape. Of men who lived fast and died young, of women caught in the crossfire, and of travelers who vanished under mysterious circumstances. Walking among these graves, it is easy to imagine the tension and fear that once hung in the air, a palpable energy that lingers even today. Visitors describe an unsettling mixture of awe and trepidation as they explore the site. The wind seems to carry whispers, unintelligible yet unmistakable, like fragments of conversations from a century past. Shadows stretch unnaturally across the graves. And some claim to see figures moving at the edges of their vision, disappearing when looked at directly. These experiences create a vivid sense of presence, a feeling that the spirits of Boot Hill have not forgotten their violent, untamed lives. At night, the cemetery becomes a stage for its spectral inhabitants. The dim glow of the moon casts ghostly light across the desert, highlighting the shapes of headstones and the faint outlines of figures that some visitors swear they see. The air grows colder, heavier with the weight of history, and the imagination fills in gaps between the soft whispers and distant, imagined gunshots. Even the rustling of the desert plant seems alive with unseen motion, as if the land itself remembers every duel, every confrontation, and every fleeting life laid to rest here. Many are drawn to Boot Hill Cemetery not just for the thrill of the supernatural, but for its connection to the human stories etched into its soil. Each grave has a tale, whether of bravery, recklessness, or tragedy. These stories seem to animate the spirits that wander the grounds. Figures frozen in time yet endlessly replaying moments of their existence. From the lone gunslinger standing silently near a weathered tombstone, to the silhouette of a woman pacing between the graves. These apparitions offer glimpses into a world defined by lawlessness, survival, and the harsh realities of frontier life. The haunting presence of Boot Hill is not overtly malevolent but is suffused with the melancholy and intensity of a bygone era. Visitors often speak of an inexplicable awareness, a sense of being watched or accompanied by forces from the past. The cemetery's isolation magnifies these feelings, the endless desert stretching beyond the eye and leaving one acutely attuned to every whisper of wind or distant sound. Some experience fleeting shadows, cold gusts of air, or even the sensation of a brush past their arm, subtle reminders that the spirits of Boot Hill are never truly gone. Walking through the cemetery, it becomes evident that this is a place where history and legend intertwine. The spectral figures, phantom sounds, and restless energy connect the living to the past in a tangible, almost cinematic way. The air is thick with the stories of those who walked the streets of Arizona long ago, of the lawmen and outlaws who defined an era, and of the fleeting moments of humanity that persisted amidst violence. Of the lawmen and outlaws who defined an era, and of the fleeting moments of humanity that persisted amidst violence. And of the fleeting moments of humanity that persisted amidst violence. Every step across the uneven ground, every glance at a time-worn headstone, carries with it the weight of the past. A reminder that Boot Hill Cemetery remains a doorway into a world both dangerous and unforgettable. The night deepens, and Boot Hill stands quietly, yet alive with memory and mystery. The desert holds its secrets, and the cemetery holds the spirits of those who lived, fought, and died with intensity and resolve. Phantom gunshots, fleeting silhouettes, and whispers in the wind continue to draw the curious, the bold, and the haunted to its grounds. In the stillness, one can feel the enduring presence of the Wild West, a place where the past refuses to fade and where the spirits of Boot Hill Cemetery continue to roam, eternally bound to the land that shaped their lives. Boot Hill Cemetery in Arizona is more than a resting place. It is a living memory, a spectral chronicle of the Wild West, preserved in the desert. Its haunting is quiet yet persistent. A place where visitors can witness the lingering echoes of history. Experience the weight of countless stories. And perhaps, catch a glimpse of the figures who shaped an era that will never be forgotten. St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 rises from the heart of New Orleans like a city of the dead. Its above-ground tombs, tightly packed and weathered by centuries of wind and rain, create narrow corridors that twist and turn like a labyrinth. The air is thick with history and an uncanny energy that seems to linger between the stone walls. Visitors entering the cemetery are immediately struck by a sense of reverence and unease, as if the spirits of the past are quietly observing all who tread upon their resting place. The cemetery is known not only for its architectural grandeur but also for the legends that surround it. Stories of voodoo rituals and the mysterious Madame Laveau weave through the corridors, imbuing the space with an air of mysticism. Some who wander these pathways report seeing shadowy figures moving silently among the tombs, vanishing before they can be clearly identified. Others hear faint chants carried on the wind, indistinct yet unmistakably human, as though the cemetery itself hums with secrets of the past. Visitors describe sudden drops in temperature, a cold that seems to seep through clothing and bone, intensifying the feeling of walking among the spirits. The narrow passageways between the tombs amplify every sound, making whispers, footsteps, or the brush of movement in the shadows seem closer than they are. It is in these moments that the cemetery reveals its most chilling presence, a reminder that life and death coexist in an uneasy balance within its walls. The tombs themselves are a visual testament to the lives once lived. Marble, limestone, and ironwork create a striking tapestry of styles, reflecting centuries of culture and tradition. Each crypt tells a story, from the grand family mausoleums adorned with statues and engravings, to simpler tombs marked only by names and dates. Many are said to harbor residual energy, remnants of grief, devotion, or unresolved sorrow, that occasionally manifests to those sensitive to the unseen. Some explorers recount seeing fleeting glimpses of figures dressed in the fashions of bygone eras, appearing to move with purpose through the corridors before fading into the shadows. Others report feeling a sudden presence behind them, a weight of attention that vanishes when they turn to look. These experiences are often accompanied by strange sounds, the faint toll of a bell, the shuffle of feet over stone, or whispered voices that dissolve into the wind. The legend of Madame Laveau, the famous voodoo queen, adds another layer of mystery to the cemetery. Pilgrims visit her tomb, leaving offerings in hopes of guidance or protection. On certain nights, some claim to witness inexplicable movements near her resting place, shadowy forms or glimmers of light that defy explanation. The combination of history, ritual, and the unexplained creates an atmosphere charged with tension, curiosity, and reverence. Even during the day, the cemetery exudes a haunting beauty. Sunlight filters through gaps between the tombs, casting long, shifting shadows across the weathered stone. The narrow alleys between the crypts twist unpredictably, making it easy to feel disoriented and heightening the sense that the dead might be near. Tourists and locals alike describe an almost cinematic quality to the environment, where each step and turn seems to bring them closer to the intangible presence of the past. The sounds of the city fade at the edges of the cemetery, replaced by the whisper of wind and the occasional rustle of leaves. Every echo carries with it the weight of centuries, and many report a heightened sensitivity to movement and energy within the grounds. Some describe the sensation of being followed or watched, an awareness that cannot be fully rationalized but is deeply felt. These experiences, combined with the legends and history, create an enduring sense of mystery that draws people back again and again. Nightfall amplifies the eerie qualities of St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. Figures glimpsed in the fading light may vanish completely in the darkness, leaving only an unsettling impression of presence. The air grows cooler, and the distant sounds of the city become muffled, as if the living world has receded, leaving only the realm of the dead. Visitors often leave with more than photographs. they carry a lingering sense of having stepped into a space where history, legend, and the supernatural converge. The cemetery is more than a resting place, it is a testament to the human fascination with mortality, memory, and the mysteries that lie just beyond the veil. Every shadow, every whisper, and every cold gust of wind contributes to the enduring story of St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, a place where the past remains vividly alive among the tombs. As one walks through the cemetery, it becomes clear that the experience is deeply personal and immersive. The energy of those who have been laid to rest, combined with the rich folklore and cultural significance of the space, creates an environment that is both beautiful and unsettling. St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 stands as a reminder that even in death, stories endure, spirits linger, and the line between the living and the dead can feel tantalizingly thin. The allure of the cemetery is undeniable. It invites exploration, reflection, and a touch of daring curiosity. Each encounter, whether seen, felt, or heard, reinforces the unique and haunting character of this historic site. That the dead are never truly gone when their stories continue to resonate among the living. Laurel Hill Cemetery in Pennsylvania stands as a testament to both history and artistry, a sprawling Victorian necropolis where stone monuments rise like silent sentinels amid carefully tended grounds. By day, the cemetery is serene and contemplative, with sunlight streaming across ornate statues, wrought iron fences, and towering obelisks. Visitors often find themselves pausing to read the inscriptions, tracing the lives and stories of those long departed. Yet the true character of Laurel Hill reveals itself as dusk descends and shadows lengthen across the paths. As night falls, the cemetery transforms. The meticulous order of headstones and crypts takes on a more mysterious tone. And the atmosphere becomes charged with an uncanny presence. Phantom footsteps are reported along the gravel paths, soft but deliberate, echoing as though someone unseen is walking among the monuments. Visitors describe the sensation of being observed, a subtle awareness that the quiet spaces are not entirely empty. It is here that the line between the living and the past seems to blur, where the architecture and history coalesce into an immersive experience. That is both beautiful and unsettling. Where the architecture and history coalesce into an immersive experience that is both beautiful and unsettling. Visitors describe the sensation of being observed, a subtle awareness that the quiet spaces are not entirely empty. It is here that the line between the living and the past seems to blur. Where the architecture and history coalesce into an immersive experience. That is both beautiful and unsettling. Figures in period clothing have been seen moving through the shadows, their forms ephemeral yet distinct. Some appear as mourners frozen in quiet grief, their outlines traced against the tombstones and the pale glow of lanterns or moonlight. Their presence is often fleeting, a silhouette vanishing when approached, leaving only the lingering sense of sorrow and the whisper of unseen voices. The apparitions are described as delicate and somber, moving with purpose along paths long walked by those who built and cherished the cemetery in the 19th century. The cemetery's layout itself contributes to its haunting allure. Meandering walkways curve past elaborate family mausoleums. Tall monuments, and urns carved with intricate symbolism. The interplay of light and shadow across these structures enhances the impression of life within the stones. Visitors note that even on still nights, the air seems to carry a soft resonance. As though the sighs and movements of the past are embedded within the very ground, waiting for attentive eyes to notice them. Victorian architecture adds a layer of narrative to the experience. The ornate carvings and Gothic arches suggest both reverence and an awareness of mortality. Statues of angels, mourners, and allegorical figures appear almost lifelike in the dim illumination, lending themselves to reports of figures shifting positions or gazes that follow passers-by. Every ornate tomb and decorative iron fence seems to be a portal into another era, a stage on which the living and spectral coexist. Visitors to Laurel Hill often recount a growing sense of the cemetery as a space of interaction rather than mere observation. The cool night air carries subtle sounds, distant footsteps, and occasional whispers that cannot be attributed to wind or wildlife. At times, a presence is felt in close proximity, warm or heavy, as if a figure has just passed through. These experiences create a heightened awareness of the past, a recognition that the cemetery is not merely a resting place but a living memory preserved in stone and spirit. Certain areas are particularly noted for paranormal activity. By the family mausoleums and along the perimeter paths, sightings of figures in mourning attire are more frequent. Some visitors describe catching glimpses of faces that appear just beyond the edge of vision, pale and sorrowful, only to vanish when turned toward. The sensation is often accompanied by an emotional weight, an inexplicable empathy for those long gone. It is as if the cemetery preserves not only their remains but also fragments of their essence, lingering through the architecture and landscape. The seasonal changes at Laurel Hill intensify its presence. In autumn, with leaves falling and fog settling over the grounds, the combination of color, shadow, and silence heightens the sense of otherworldliness. Winter's early darkness and frost accentuate the contrast between statues and earth. While spring and summer bring life to the flora, offering an ephemeral balance between vitality and memory. Even in daylight, the cemetery offers subtle hints of its haunted reputation. Shadows cast by tall obelisks and mausoleums shift across paths in ways that draw attention. And the echo of footsteps can sometimes be heard when no one else is present. The architectural details, when examined closely, reveal stories of loss, celebration, and the cultural attitudes toward death that pervaded the Victorian era. In this way, Laurel Hill is both an educational and emotional journey. One that engages visitors on multiple sensory levels. The experiences reported at Laurel Hill Cemetery are rarely frightening in a traditional sense. Instead, they evoke reflection, curiosity, and a deepened awareness of history. Phantom footsteps, apparitions of mourners, and whispered echoes create a cinematic environment where the past is present. Every statue, path, and crypt contributes to a narrative that blends memory, art, and the unexplained. For those who explore its grounds, Laurel Hill offers an opportunity to witness a landscape where history is alive and the spirits of those who once walked among the stones continue to be felt. Laurel Hill Cemetery stands as a remarkable intersection of artistry, memory, and the supernatural. Its Victorian structures, carefully planned pathways, and historical significance combine to create an environment that is both visually stunning and atmospherically charged. Visitors leave with more than photographs and knowledge, they carry the lingering impressions of footsteps that cannot be accounted for, figures glimpsed in fading light, and the profound sense that some presences endure long after the last visitor departs. The cemetery, in its quiet dignity and spectral whispers, reminds us that history is never fully behind us. The past, etched in stone and spirit, continues to inhabit the paths, the tombs, and the spaces between. At Laurel Hill, the intersection of life, death, and memory becomes tangible. And the stories of those who came before resonate in the footsteps. The shadows. And the silent watch of angels and mourners still roaming the grounds. Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, California, stretches across acres of shaded grounds, a resting place for some of the most famous figures in entertainment history. Established in the early 20th century, it is a landscape of grand mausoleums, ornate tombs, and weathered headstones, each telling a story of fame, artistry, and human life. Walking along its winding paths, visitors are surrounded by beauty and history, yet there is an undeniable air of mystery that permeates the grounds, a feeling that the lives once lived here continue to leave an imprint beyond the ordinary. During the day, sunlight filters through towering cypress and oak trees, casting long shadows that shift with the breeze. The scent of flowers blends with the earthy aroma of aged stone, creating a solemn atmosphere. Some visitors report the sensation of being watched, as if unseen eyes follow their movements along the paths. Subtle movements in the corners of vision, shadows that appear briefly and then vanish, and the occasional creak of distant gates contribute to a sense that the cemetery is alive with presence, a silent observer of all who enter. Shadows that appear briefly and then vanish, and the occasional creak of distant gates contribute to a sense that the cemetery is alive with presence, a silent observer of all who enter. And the occasional creak of distant gates contribute to a sense that the cemetery is alive with presence, a silent observer of all who enter. A silent observer of all who enter. Mausoleums and crypts offer a particular intensity to the atmosphere. Their stone walls and heavy doors hold histories of families, celebrities, and long-past lives. Many visitors describe sudden chills and goosebumps as they approach these structures, even on warm days. Soft whispers are sometimes heard within the empty halls, carrying no words but an unmistakable cadence that suggests the echoes of conversations long since ended. The interplay of light, shadow, and architectural grandeur makes each visit immersive, leaving the impression that the cemetery preserves not only bodies but fragments of memory. As evening approaches, Hollywood Forever Cemetery transforms. The sun dips low, painting the grounds in gold and amber, and shadows stretch across the tombs and monuments. The temperature drops slightly, yet the air feels charged with anticipation. Many who explore at this hour report seeing shadowy figures moving silently among the graves, glimpses that vanish when turned toward. Phantom lights have been observed hovering near mausoleums or tracing along pathways, creating moments of wonder and unease that linger long after the initial sighting. The cemetery's history enhances its mysterious reputation. Celebrities and ordinary citizens alike rest within its grounds. Their stories woven together across decades. Death, fame, and personal tragedy have left impressions that visitors sense in subtle ways. The contrast between the permanence of stone monuments and the fleeting nature of life creates a dynamic tension. A sense that Hollywood Forever Cemetery is a place where the boundary between past and present feels permeable. Visitors often recount experiences that challenge conventional understanding. Figures appear near family plots or celebrity graves, sometimes paused as though in reflection. Whispers echo through mausoleum corridors, carrying the faintest hint of human speech. Lights flicker without source, illuminating statues and stone walls for brief moments before vanishing into darkness. The combination of these experiences heightens awareness of the environment, encouraging a careful, contemplative walk among the tombs and creating a sense of intimate connection to the lives interred within the grounds. The cemetery's landscaping contributes to its eerie beauty. Gardens, shaded groves, and fountains provide points of interest during daylight hours, yet as night falls, these same areas transform. Trees sway in the evening breeze, their movements producing shadows that appear almost human. Statues of angels, mourning figures, and carved faces take on a lifelike quality in shifting light, their forms enhanced by the subtle interplay of moonlight and darkness. Visitors often pause in these moments, sensing that the cemetery is more than a resting place, it is a space where history and the unexplained coexist seamlessly. Ghostly phenomena in Hollywood Forever Cemetery are often subtle yet persistent. Cold drafts sweep along pathways that should be calm, and soft footsteps echo where no one walks. Some report hearing laughter, faint and distant, as though carried from another time. The combination of architectural grandeur, historical significance, and reported supernatural activity creates an immersive experience, leaving visitors with both awe and quiet unease. Every corner of the cemetery seems to hold potential for the unexpected. An invitation to witness the traces of past lives lingering in the present. The nighttime experience intensifies the feeling of the cemetery as a living memory. The distant glow of city lights contrasts with the darkness among the tombs. And each step along the gravel paths is amplified in the silence. Shadows move and disappear, whispers seem to arise from the very air. And cold chills appear where none should exist. Hollywood Forever Cemetery becomes a place of reflection and subtle suspense. A location where the presence of the past feels tangible, and where visitors can sense the continuation of stories, emotions, and energy that refuse to fade. Hollywood Forever Cemetery endures as a remarkable blend of history, artistry, and subtle mystery. Its tombs and mausoleums honor the famous and the forgotten alike, while its grounds retain an aura that captures the imagination. Visitors leave with a sense of reverence, awareness, and lingering curiosity, aware that within this historic cemetery, shadows and whispers may be more than memory, and that the stories of those interred continue to move silently among the stones. Old City Cemetery in North Carolina stands as a solemn witness to the turbulence of the Civil War, its grounds etched with the memory of countless soldiers who never returned home. Moss-draped trees stretch their limbs over rows of time-worn gravestones, and the air carries a weight of history that seems to linger long after the sun has set. Visitors to the cemetery often describe a palpable atmosphere, one that evokes both reverence and unease as twilight deepens and shadows lengthen across the hallowed ground. The cemetery is home to graves marked by simple stones and elaborate monuments alike, each telling a fragment of a story lost to time. Some bear the names of young soldiers, barely old enough to grasp the meaning of the battles they fought, while others remain anonymous, their identities swallowed by history. The rows of graves extend in silent formation, a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and the fleeting nature of life amidst war. As darkness falls, the cemetery seems to awaken. Visitors have reported seeing apparitions of soldiers moving quietly between the graves, their forms faint yet distinct, clad in the uniforms of a bygone era. Some appear to be standing at attention, as if bound by duty even in death, while others drift along the paths in restless motion. The cold night air carries more than just a chill. There are whispers and fleeting sounds that resemble orders being called or boots softly striking the earth. Phantom drumbeats are often reported echoing through the cemetery, steady and rhythmic, as if a spectral unit is still performing drills from a time long past. The cadence resonates through the silent night, stirring the imagination and evoking the tension of battles fought and lives lost. Even in moments of stillness, the presence of history is undeniable, and the boundary between the living and the departed feels tenuous, as if the spirits themselves have chosen this place to linger. Walking among the gravestones, one is struck by the juxtaposition of beauty and sorrow. Sunlight filtering through the leaves creates shifting patterns on the ground during the day, and at night, the moon casts a silver glow that brings the weathered stones into sharp relief. And at night, the moon casts a silver glow that brings the weathered stones into sharp relief. The air is thick with a sense of reflection and remembrance, but also with the subtle unease that accompanies the presence of the unexplained. Visitors report sudden gusts of wind, fleeting shadows, and an inexplicable feeling of being watched, experiences that seem to connect them to the lives and deaths commemorated here. The history embedded in Old City Cemetery is as complex as it is haunting. Each grave is a chapter of a larger narrative, a story of struggle, sacrifice, and the enduring impact of war on a community. The soldiers buried here were part of a nation divided, and their presence in death continues to shape the identity of the site. Their spirits, whether imagined or real, offer a bridge to the past, allowing visitors to sense the weight of history in a tangible, almost cinematic way. Even beyond the apparitions, the cemetery holds an atmosphere that demands attention. The rustling of leaves, the distant call of night birds, and the whispering of the wind through the trees all contribute to an environment where the ordinary becomes extraordinary. For those attuned to the subtle energies of the place, the cemetery is alive with the memory of lives once lived and the enduring echoes of their final moments. It is a space where reflection and curiosity meet, where history and the supernatural intersect, and where the passage of time seems to fold back upon itself. Some visitors recount encounters with more vivid manifestations. Shadows take shape in the corner of the eye, disappearing when focused upon. And the scent of earth and gunpowder has been noted by those walking the old paths at dusk. The combination of sound, scent, and sight creates an immersive experience. One that draws the observer deeper into the layered history of the cemetery. Every step across the soft ground. Every glance at a leaning or cracked tombstone carries with it the weight of memory. And the suggestion of lives that refuse to be forgotten. Old City Cemetery is not merely a resting place but a conduit to the past. The spirits of soldiers, the phantom drumbeats, and the whispering winds all serve to connect visitors to the events that shaped a nation. The cemetery invites reflection, a meditation on the fragility of life and the enduring impact of human conflict. Its haunting is quiet, measured, and poignant, a reminder that even in death, those who fought and perished continue to resonate through time. As night deepens, the cemetery holds its secrets close, yet offers glimpses of its spectral inhabitants to those who are willing to see. The air grows colder, the shadows deepen, and the rhythmic drumbeats fade into the distance, leaving a lingering impression of presence and history. Old City Cemetery remains a place where the past is ever present, where the stories of soldiers echo through the night, and where the living can encounter the enduring spirit of a time defined by courage, loss, and remembrance. Visitors leave with a sense of awe and quiet reflection, carrying the weight of what they have witnessed. Old City Cemetery stands as a timeless monument, a place where the past is alive in the shadows. And the whispers of soldiers continue to traverse the grounds. In the stillness of night, one can feel the lingering presence of those who came before, their stories etched into the land. And their spirits forever tied to this hallowed North Carolina ground. Sleepy Hollow Cemetery rests quietly along the banks of the Hudson River. Shrouded in mist and memory. Its winding paths lead between ancient tombstones. Weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Each one holding stories of lives long past. The cemetery is a place where history and legend intertwine. And the air itself seems thick with the weight of secrets waiting to be discovered. Visitors who wander its grounds often speak of an otherworldly presence. A sense that the shadows between the stones are alive with movement. On fog-laden evenings, some claim to see figures gliding across the paths. Their forms indistinct yet undeniably human. Others notice glowing eyes emerging from the darkness, fleeting and vanishing as quickly as they appear. Leaving a lingering chill in the air. The terrain itself contributes to the eerie atmosphere. Obscuring paths and making familiar markers seem strange and unfamiliar. A susurration of sound that some interpret as voices from beyond, calling from a time long before the present. Stories of the Headless Horseman are inseparable from this place. Many visitors report glimpsing a dark horseman riding along the edges of the cemetery. Appearing suddenly through the fog and disappearing just as quickly. Others describe hearing the pounding of hooves against the earth. Though the ground shows no trace of them. These encounters, whether imagined or real, contribute to the enduring sense that Sleepy Hollow Cemetery is a threshold between the living and the dead. The cemetery holds a rich collection of tombs, monuments, and markers that reflect the lives and struggles of the people who once walked these lands. Marble and granite structures rise from the earth, some adorned with intricate carvings of angels or symbols of mortality. Others are simple, time-worn stones that barely retain the names of those interred. These markers serve not only as memorials but as vessels of energy, carrying the weight of grief, love, and history that permeates the grounds. Even during daylight, the atmosphere can be unsettling. The sunlight filters weakly through the canopy of trees, casting long shadows that shift as the hours pass. The narrow pathways wind unpredictably, leading explorers deeper into sections where the world seems hushed and suspended. Each step taken among the graves brings a heightened awareness of the unseen, a sensation that the past is watching and waiting. Sightings in the cemetery are varied and often inexplicable. Visitors speak of shadowy figures moving silently between tombs, their forms slipping behind gravestones as if aware of being observed. Some report sudden drops in temperature that make the skin crawl, followed by the faint echo of footsteps where no one is present. Others describe hearing muffled sounds, like whispers or rustling fabric, that seem to follow them along the winding paths. At night, Sleepy Hollow Cemetery becomes a stage for the imagination and the uncanny. Moonlight glances off the surfaces of weathered stones, creating illusions of movement where none exists. The combination of darkness, fog, and the weight of centuries evokes a deep tension that is both captivating and unsettling. It is easy to feel the presence of those who have passed, lingering as shadows between the graves. The Headless Horseman legend continues to draw the curious and the brave. Some visitors feel a presence in the distance, a silent watcher riding along the edges of their vision. Others hear the sudden rush of air and the imagined clatter of hooves, a sensation so vivid that it feels entirely real. Whether legend or lingering spirit, the tales feed the collective imagination and ensure that Sleepy Hollow Cemetery remains a place of fascination and fear. Amid the eerie occurrences, the cemetery also holds a solemn beauty. The combination of natural landscapes and historic tombs creates a striking visual impression, where history is tangible and palpable. Visitors are reminded of the passage of time, the fragility of life, and the lingering echoes of memory that survive long after death. This duality, between reverence and fear, is central to the experience of wandering among the graves. Walking through Sleepy Hollow Cemetery is an immersive journey. Each path, tomb, and shadow contributes to a feeling of timelessness and connection with the past. The cemetery is a space where history, legend, and unexplained phenomena converge, creating a rich tapestry of stories. The whispers of the past, the movement of shadows, and the occasional glimpse of figures in the fog ensure that Sleepy Hollow Cemetery remains an unforgettable and haunting destination. Visitors depart with a sense of awe and reflection. The cemetery leaves an impression not only of mystery and supernatural possibility, but also of the deep human connection to memory and place. Every stone, every path, and every shadow carries a story. And every encounter, whether real or imagined, strengthens the legend that surrounds this hallowed and haunted ground. Rose Hill Cemetery in Illinois stretches across gently rolling hills, its grounds steeped in history and shadowed by tales of tragedy. Established decades ago, the cemetery holds the resting places of countless individuals. Each stone a marker of lives once lived, and each pathway a silent witness to sorrow and remembrance. The meticulously arranged graves, the weathered statues, and the tall trees that line the paths create an atmosphere both solemn and serene. Yet beneath this surface, the air carries an inexplicable tension. As daylight fades and evening descends, the cemetery takes on a more enigmatic presence. Shadows lengthen along winding pathways, and the outlines of monuments seem to shift as the light changes. Visitors often report feeling a sudden chill, a coldness that cuts through the air with no discernible source, leaving an almost tangible sense of the unseen. Phantom footsteps echo softly along gravel paths, suggesting the passage of unseen figures among the headstones. It is in these moments that Rose Hill Cemetery reveals its haunting character, a place where history and the unknown intermingle. The old trees sway with a quiet rhythm, casting shifting shadows that resemble figures moving through the mist. Some visitors have described shadowy forms appearing at the edges of vision, fleeting glimpses of shapes that vanish when approached. These figures are often seen near older sections of the cemetery, where time has left its marks in crumbling stone and moss-covered monuments. The atmosphere in these areas is thick with the weight of memory, a reminder that each grave holds not just a life but echoes of the stories that once played out in the world above. Ghostly lights are another phenomenon reported by those exploring the cemetery after dark. Small orbs of illumination hover near graves or drift along pathways. Their presence gentle yet otherworldly. Some describe these lights as moving with intention, appearing in patterns that suggest awareness or purpose. The experience can be disorienting, a surreal encounter where the line between natural and supernatural blurs, leaving observers both fascinated and unsettled. Rose Hill Cemetery also carries the weight of tragic histories. Many of the individuals interred here met untimely or violent ends. And it is in these stories that some believe the lingering presence is strongest. Along certain paths, the air feels heavy, and the temperature can drop suddenly, as if the spirits of the past are reaching outward. Visitors recount moments when the silence of the night is broken by subtle sounds as soft whispers, rustling leaves, or the faint creak of an unseen gate swinging on its hinges. Each instance deepens the impression that the cemetery is alive with residual energy, a repository of emotion and memory that persists beyond death. The architecture of the cemetery contributes. Stone mausoleums, wrought iron fences, and ornate statues. And ornate statues stand as both memorials and markers of history, their intricate designs catching the moonlight and casting long, distorted shadows. Angels carved from stone seem to watch over visitors, their expressions solemn and lifelike. On misty nights, these statues appear almost animated, their presence intensifying the sense of being observed by entities beyond the mortal realm. Visitors often describe the sensation of not being alone, a feeling that someone or something is moving just beyond their perception. In some areas, figures dressed in outdated clothing are seen standing near graves or following paths in silence. These apparitions are rarely threatening, instead evoking a sense of quiet melancholy, a connection to the lives and losses that the cemetery preserves. Some believe that these spirits are bound to the cemetery by unfinished business or lingering attachments, while others feel that Rose Hill acts as a bridge between the living and the dead, a place where memory manifests in visible forms. Seasons at Rose Hill bring different dimensions to the haunting experience. Autumn casts a golden and rust-colored veil over the grounds, with falling leaves swirling around headstones and obscuring paths, adding a layer of mystery. Winter's cold and barren landscapes accentuate the sense of isolation and silence, while spring and summer bring life to the flora, creating a poignant contrast between the vitality of nature and the permanence of the graves. Each season shapes the atmosphere, influencing both the visibility of apparitions and the overall mood of the cemetery. Even during the day, subtle hints of the supernatural can be perceived. The play of sunlight across monuments can create shifting patterns that resemble fleeting figures. And the whisper of the wind through trees sometimes carries sounds reminiscent of voices. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. For those who pause and listen carefully, the cemetery seems to communicate through these elements, offering an immersive experience where history, architecture, and unexplained phenomena intersect. The allure of Rose Hill Cemetery lies in its ability to engage visitors on multiple levels. It is not merely a resting place but a repository of stories, emotions, and memories that linger long after life has ended. Phantom footsteps, shadowy figures, ghostly lights, and cold spots all contribute to the impression of a space that exists in both the physical and spectral realms. Each encounter, subtle or pronounced, draws the observer deeper into the history of the land and the lives it preserves. Rose Hill Cemetery stands as a profound reminder that the past is never entirely gone. Its monuments and pathways, along with the lingering presences that walk among them, offer a bridge to those who have passed. For visitors willing to explore its grounds, the cemetery presents a unique opportunity to experience history, artistry, and the unknown in a single, immersive setting. The stories embedded within its landscape, combined with the enigmatic manifestations reported by those who wander its paths, create a lasting impression of a place where the past remains vividly alive, and the spirits of those long gone continue to echo among the stones. Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia, stretches across rolling grounds beneath a canopy of moss-draped oaks. The air is thick with history and the quiet weight of lives remembered, where centuries-old tombs and statues rise from carefully maintained plots. And the soft rustle of leaves carries a sense of timelessness, where beauty and mystery coexist in a delicate balance. The sprawling oaks, their limbs heavy with Spanish moss, create natural tunnels that filter sunlight into shifting patterns on the ground. Shadows twist and dance with every breeze, lending a sense of movement even when the air is still. Among these ancient trees, figures seem to appear in the corner of vision, only to vanish when approached. The sensation is subtle yet persistent, a feeling that Bonaventure retains echoes of those who have passed, lingering in the spaces between monuments and along quiet pathways. The tombs themselves tell stories of generations. Statues of angels, mourning women, and cherubs stand sentinel over the graves, worn by time yet resolute in presence. The artistry and symbolism etched into stone convey grief, hope, and remembrance, but they also amplify the sense of the unseen. In a place so steeped in memory, the boundary between the living and the past feels fragile, as if the cemetery itself breathes quietly among the oaks. Even during the day, the cemetery carries an air of quiet suspense. Sounds from the surrounding city fade behind rows of ancient trees, leaving a hushed world where every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves becomes amplified. The interplay of light and shadow creates illusions that tease the senses. Movement at the edge of vision may be a trick of sunlight, yet many insist they have glimpsed figures standing near statues or disappearing behind mausoleum walls. These fleeting encounters contribute to an immersive experience, heightening awareness and curiosity. As evening approaches, Bonaventure transforms. The fading light casts a golden hue across monuments, and the moss-covered oaks take on a ghostly silhouette. The air grows cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. In this hour, shadowy figures have been reported gliding silently among the paths, appearing near tombs that have stood for centuries. Unexplained lights sometimes flicker along the edges of mausoleums, and footsteps echo where no one walks, creating a sense that the past has not yet released its hold on the present. Unexplained lights sometimes flicker along the edges of mausoleums, and footsteps echo where no one walks, creating a sense that the past has not yet released its hold on the present. The history of Bonaventure Cemetery enhances its mysterious aura. Established in the 19th century, it became the final resting place for citizens of Savannah, including notable figures whose lives shaped the region. Epidemics, personal tragedies, and everyday stories of love and loss have left invisible imprints upon the grounds. Visitors often sense the weight of these histories, as if every tomb holds not only the remains of the deceased but also fragments of memory and energy that persist in subtle ways. The design of the cemetery encourages exploration and discovery. Every turn reveals new details, intricate carvings on headstones, crypts hidden among thick vegetation, and quiet alcoves where shadows gather. A bird landing on a branch, a breeze shifting moss, or the distant call of a crow can all become part of a narrative that blurs the line between reality and imagination. Visitors often report experiences that feel simultaneously serene and eerie. Figures seem to appear and vanish without warning, footsteps echo in empty corridors, and sudden chills remind them of the presence of the unseen. Lights flicker mysteriously near gravestones, while the quiet murmur of wind through trees resembles faint whispers. These occurrences are subtle, never threatening, yet powerful in the impression they leave. Bonaventure Cemetery becomes a place where the past coexists with the present, where history and memory are palpable, and where each visitor senses the traces of lives once lived. As night deepens, the cemetery becomes enveloped in darkness, the shadows of oak stretching long across paths and monuments. The interplay of moonlight, moss, and stone transforms familiar features into haunting silhouettes. The quiet is punctuated by distant sounds, a footstep on gravel, a branch snapping in the breeze, each echo creating a sense of presence beyond the visible. Bonaventure Cemetery at night offers a fully immersive experience, where the weight of history, the beauty of the landscape, and the subtle hints of the unexplained combine to create a space that is both awe-inspiring and mysterious. Bonaventure endures as a testament to memory, art, and the delicate persistence of the past. Its moss-draped oaks, historic tombs, and quiet paths create a landscape that is visually stunning and atmospherically rich. Visitors leave with a sense of connection, awareness, and wonder, aware that the cemetery holds more than stone and earth. Within its grounds, shadowy figures, soft whispers, and unexplained footsteps suggest a continued presence, a reminder that in places like Bonaventure, the past remains alive in subtle, lingering ways. Oakwood Cemetery in Texas is a sprawling landscape where history and memory converge among weathered tombstones and winding paths. Ancient oak trees stretch their gnarled limbs across the grounds, casting elongated shadows that shift with the fading light. The air carries the scent of damp earth and aged stone, a subtle reminder of the lives that have come and gone over decades. Visitors often describe a quiet intensity here, a feeling that the past lingers in every corner, watching and waiting. The cemetery is home to graves of soldiers, townsfolk, and families whose names have become part of local history. Some stones are etched with elaborate carvings, while others are simple markers worn smooth by time. Each monument tells a fragment of a story, a life remembered, and a connection to a larger narrative of community, struggle, and endurance. Among these stones, the echoes of bygone days are palpable, as if the land itself preserves the memories of those who rest here. As dusk settles over Oakwood Cemetery, the atmosphere shifts. Shadows deepen, and the contours of the tombstones take on a more mysterious presence. Visitors report fleeting glimpses of figures moving silently among the graves, apparitions clothed in the attire of earlier generations. Some appear to wander aimlessly, while others seem to stand at attention, their presence quiet yet undeniable. The cold air seems to intensify these experiences, carrying soft whispers that vanish as quickly as they arrive. Phantom voices are often heard drifting across the cemetery, gentle murmurs that seem almost human in origin but carry an otherworldly quality. The voices mingle with the rustling of leaves, the creaking of branches, and the distant call of night birds. There are reports of fleeting movements in the corner of the eye, shadows shifting across pathways, and the sensation of being followed or observed. These phenomena evoke both curiosity and caution, drawing visitors deeper into the haunting yet captivating atmosphere of the grounds. Oakwood Cemetery holds a distinct resonance for those interested in history and the supernatural. The soldiers buried here, many of whom served in conflicts that shaped the state and nation, are said to leave subtle marks of their presence. Boots striking the soft earth, the flutter of uniforms in the wind, and the occasional echo of commands recalled from long ago all contribute to a sense of living history. It is as if the cemetery allows a glimpse into the lives of those who have passed, bridging the gap between the present and the past. Walking among the tombstones, one becomes acutely aware of the layers of memory that define the place. Some graves tell stories of tragedy, sudden loss, or forgotten individuals, while others reflect legacies of community leadership and service. Each marker contributes to a tapestry of human experience, and in the quiet of night, the echoes of those lives resonate in unexpected ways. Shadows seem to stretch with intention, and the air carries a weight of remembrance that touches the heart as much as the imagination. The cemetery is not merely a resting place but a keeper of stories. Apparitions have been seen standing silently beside headstones, their forms fading when approached yet leaving a lingering impression. Phantom footsteps can follow visitors along the narrow lanes, sometimes stopping abruptly or changing direction. The combination of visual, auditory, and emotional stimuli creates a profound and immersive experience. One that invites reflection on mortality, memory, and the enduring presence of those who came before. Natural beauty interweaves with the eerie atmosphere. Fog can roll in from nearby lowlands, curling around the bases of monuments and lending a dreamlike quality to the landscape. The interplay of light, shadow, and weather enhances the feeling that Oakwood Cemetery is alive with more than the memory of the departed. It is a place where the veil between the living and the dead seems particularly thin, and where attention to detail rewards the observant with subtle, sometimes unsettling, impressions. Some visitors report more intimate encounters. Silhouettes appear at the edge of vision, only to vanish when looked at directly. The whisper of a name or the faint sound of laughter seems to come from nowhere, leaving the listener both startled and intrigued. These moments, while brief, can leave a lasting sense of connection to the history embedded in the cemetery. It serves as a reminder that Oakwood is not a static space but a living archive of human experience, imbued with presence and emotion that transcends the physical. Oakwood Cemetery invites contemplation, reflection, and respectful curiosity. Each step along its paths offers a passage through time, revealing stories of courage, loss, and endurance. The shadows and whispers are part of the narrative, reminding visitors that history is not confined to books or monuments but lives on in the spaces where people once lived and worked. The presence of past residents and soldiers is a quiet testament to lives that continue to resonate, creating a profound, immersive, and cinematic experience for those willing to explore its grounds. A profound, immersive, and cinematic experience for those willing to explore its grounds. By night, Oakwood Cemetery becomes a stage for memory and mystery. The interplay of wind, light, and shadow heightens the sense of the unseen. While the gravestones and monuments provide tangible anchors for the imagination. Apparitions, phantom voices, and subtle movements invite reflection and engagement, allowing the visitor to walk in the footsteps of the past. Oakwood stands as both a historical record and a hauntingly beautiful place, where the stories of the departed linger in the air, whispering through the trees, and offering a bridge between history and the present moment. For those who traverse its paths with care, Oakwood Cemetery is an encounter with both the tangible and the intangible. The spirits of soldiers and residents, the soft sounds of the night, and the visual impressions of shadowed figures create an environment that is immersive, respectful, and profoundly moving. It is a place where history and the supernatural intersect, where memory breathes in every corner, and where visitors leave with the sense of having witnessed something timeless and enduring. Mount Hope Cemetery stretches across rolling hills, its landscape dotted with monuments, statues, and weathered gravestones. Established long ago, the cemetery serves as the final resting place for countless souls, including veterans who served in the Civil War. Each tombstone tells a story, and the air itself seems imbued with the weight of history, echoing with memories of lives that shaped the past. Visitors to Mount Hope often describe an uncanny sensation as they wander its paths. A stillness hangs over the grounds that is almost tangible, broken only by the whisper of wind through ancient trees or the distant call of a bird. Yet, for some, the quiet is deceptive, hinting at a presence beyond the living. Shadows move where none should be, and sudden chills brush across the skin, leaving an unshakable sense of being watched. The cemetery's layout adds to its mystique. Narrow pathways weave between tall obelisks and intricately carved statues, while open clearings reveal rows of uniformed gravestones that mark the lives of soldiers. On foggy mornings, the mist drifts low, curling around the bases of monuments and obscuring the path ahead. In this ethereal atmosphere, visitors report glimpses of figures clad in period uniforms, their forms sometimes solid and other times translucent, fading into the mist as quickly as they appear. Mount Hope holds a particular connection to the Civil War era, and many claim that this link explains the spectral sightings. Phantom soldiers are said to march along the cemetery grounds, appearing briefly at the edge of vision before vanishing. Some have described hearing muffled footsteps, the soft echo of boots against dirt, or the distant sound of commands given long ago. The experience is both eerie and poignant, a reminder of the sacrifices made and the lives lost during a turbulent chapter of history. Among the tombstones, the atmosphere shifts as one moves deeper into the older sections. Gnarled trees arch overhead, casting twisted shadows that play tricks on the eyes. Faint whispers seem to float through the air, unintelligible yet laden with emotion. Visitors sometimes feel a sudden drop in temperature, a coldness that seems to follow them along the pathways, intensifying the sensation of stepping into a realm where the past lingers vividly. The monuments themselves are both beautiful and haunting. Angels carved from marble gaze down from pedestals, their expressions solemn and serene. Soldiers' graves stand in regimented rows, a silent tribute to those who once wore the uniforms of their nation. Some of these figures are the focus of repeated ghostly sightings, with witnesses recounting brief flashes of movement or shadow that cannot be explained. Each encounter leaves an impression of connection across time, as if the past and present have briefly converged. Even in daylight, Mount Hope Cemetery holds an air of mystery. The sunlight filtering through the branches creates shifting patterns on the ground, and shadows seem to elongate and contract unnaturally. Sounds can appear distorted, the rustle of leaves may resemble distant voices, or the snap of a twig may echo like a footstep. It is a place where perception is heightened, where every sound and movement carries significance, and where the veil between the living and the departed feels remarkably thin. Nightfall amplifies the cemetery's enigmatic qualities. Under a waning moon, the gravestones cast long, angular shadows across the terrain, and mist often rises from low-lying areas, transforming familiar paths into labyrinths of uncertainty. Some visitors report seeing shapes moving silently among the monuments, figures in uniform that pause to glance toward them before dissolving into the darkness. Others describe feeling unseen hands brush past or the sensation of breath on the back of the neck, fleeting yet deeply affecting. Mount Hope Cemetery is more than a resting place for the departed. It is a canvas of history, memory, and legend. Every monument, every tomb, every shadow contributes to a narrative that stretches across centuries. The whispers of the past, the spectral figures, and the sudden chills serve as reminders of lives that once were, and continue to leave echoes behind. For those who walk its paths, the cemetery offers an experience that is both reflective and chilling. A meeting place between history and the unexplained. Visitors leave Mount Hope with a sense of reverence and unease. The cemetery impresses not only through its beauty and historical significance but also through the subtle and unexplained phenomena that persist. It is a place where the stories of Civil War soldiers and countless others are not only remembered but seemingly replayed in fleeting glimpses of ghostly forms and whispers carried on the wind. Each encounter reinforces the enduring presence of the past, ensuring that Mount Hope Cemetery remains a haunting and unforgettable landscape where history is alive in ways beyond the ordinary. Cypress Lawn Memorial Park in California stretches across rolling hills, its grounds filled with the quiet dignity of countless lives remembered. Established over a century ago, the cemetery is renowned for its grand mausoleums, intricate statuary, and tree-lined avenues. Each monument tells a story, marking a life once lived, and each pathway seems to echo with memories long past. Visitors walking the grounds often speak of a stillness that goes beyond silence, a sensation of being watched by unseen eyes as the wind rustles through the ancient oaks. As daylight fades and shadows lengthen, the atmosphere shifts, taking on a more mysterious and haunting quality. The tall cypress trees sway gently, casting long, moving shadows across gravestones and crypts. Soft whispers seem to rise from the ground itself, carried by the breeze along the winding paths. Some visitors report seeing fleeting silhouettes between the monuments, figures that appear for only a moment before vanishing into the twilight. These brief glimpses are enough to instill a deep sense of curiosity and unease, as though the cemetery is alive with the echoes of the past. Cypress Lawn holds many tragic stories within its grounds. From sudden deaths to unfulfilled lives, the cemetery preserves the memories of those who departed under sorrowful circumstances. In certain areas, the air grows noticeably colder, and the faint sound of sobbing or murmured voices seems to emanate from no discernible source. Walkers along these paths feel an invisible presence, a reminder that grief and memory do not always remain confined to the living. The cemetery becomes a place where the emotional resonance of history can be sensed and felt, a living connection to the departed. Among the cemeteria's remarkable architecture, large crypts and ornate mausoleums dominate the landscape. Their stone facades catch the fading light and shadows play along their edges, creating shapes that seem almost human. Angels and other figures carved in marble watch silently, their expressions solemn yet lifelike. On misty or overcast evenings, these statues appear almost animated, lending an ethereal quality to the grounds. Visitors have often described feeling watched or followed, even when alone, as though the spirits of the departed keep careful vigil over their resting places. Ghostly silhouettes are reported moving through these crypts, often appearing near the older sections of the cemetery. These figures are rarely threatening, instead, they exude a quiet melancholy, a lingering presence that reflects lives once intertwined with the earth. Many who encounter these apparitions describe an overwhelming sense of sadness and reverence, a feeling that the cemetery itself holds the collective weight of the stories it contains. Sounds in Cypress lawn often defy explanation. Visitors recount hearing soft cries in the distance, or faint footsteps along empty paths where no one is walking. These subtle auditory experiences heighten the sense of immersion, drawing observers deeper into the narrative of the cemetery. At night, the effect becomes more pronounced, with the interplay of darkness, light, and shadow creating an atmosphere where the line between reality and the supernatural blurs. It is a place where imagination and history converge, producing experiences that linger long after leaving the grounds. The seasons shape the mood and aura of Cypress lawn in unique ways. Winter brings a stark, cold beauty, emphasizing the isolation and solemnity of the monuments. Spring and summer transform the grounds with blooming flora and vibrant greenery, yet even in these seasons, the presence of the past remains palpable. Each shift in weather and light affects the perception of the apparitions and the overall tone of the experience. Even in daytime, subtle signs of the supernatural can be noticed. Shifting patterns of sunlight across marble statues and monuments can create illusions of movement. The gentle rustle of leaves can resemble distant whispers, and shadows may form shapes that mimic the outline of human figures. These small, almost imperceptible phenomena contribute to the sense that Cypress lawn is more than a cemetery, it is a repository of memory, emotion, and energy, extending beyond the physical world. Visitors who explore the cemetery report a range of sensations, from awe and reflection to unease and curiosity. The combination of grand architecture, historical weight, and unexplained occurrences makes the experience deeply immersive. Whether witnessing ghostly silhouettes, hearing distant cries, or sensing an unseen presence, those who walk the grounds of Cypress Lawn Memorial Park often feel a profound connection to the lives and stories of those who came before. Cypress Lawn Memorial Park stands as a testament to the enduring presence of the past. Its monuments, crypts, and pathways hold both the physical and emotional imprints of history. While ghostly figures, soft cries, and cold spots remind visitors that memory and spirit persist beyond death. For those willing to explore its winding paths, the cemetery offers a unique opportunity to encounter history, art, and the unexplained. All woven into a single, unforgettable experience. The lingering presences within its grounds create an atmosphere where the past is not only remembered but, in subtle and mysterious ways, continues to exist alongside the living. Historic City Cemetery in Virginia is a sprawling landscape of memory, where centuries of lives intersect beneath towering trees and weathered headstones. The cemetery stretches across gently rolling grounds, dotted with ornate monuments, simple markers, and family plots that have stood for generations. Walking along its winding paths, visitors sense both the tranquility of a sacred resting place and an undercurrent of mystery that seems to pulse quietly through the air. The cemeteria's trees, tall and wide, cast long shadows that shift with every passing cloud and whispering breeze. Sunlight filters through leaves, creating a dappled pattern across pathways and tombstones. In this light, the atmosphere is serene, yet there are subtle indications that the past lingers in ways beyond the visible. Some visitors report sudden chills or fleeting glimpses of figures along quiet paths, shapes that appear briefly and vanish when approached. The cemetery seems to hold its own presence, a gentle but persistent reminder of lives once lived. The tombs and monuments tell stories of generations. Angels carved in stone, mourning women with bowed heads. And cherubs scattered across graves convey grief, remembrance, and enduring love. These forms, worn by time and weather, hold a quiet dignity while also amplifying the sense of the unseen. Many visitors describe soft whispers that seem to rise from empty spaces. Cold drafts that move along paths, and occasional sensations of being watched. Every step through the cemetery deepens the impression that it is a place where memory and presence coexist. Even in the afternoon, when the sun warms the earth, the cemetery retains a subtle tension. Sounds from the surrounding streets fade behind dense foliage and monuments, leaving only the natural chorus of birds and rustling leaves. Footsteps on gravel paths echo more than expected, heightening the awareness of the surroundings. Some have reported seeing fleeting figures of mourners, children playing near old family plots, or shadows that do not match any living presence. These experiences add to the immersive atmosphere, blending the natural and the extraordinary. As evening falls, historic city cemetery transforms. Shadows stretch long and deep, creating corridors of darkness that seem to hold whispers from the past. Visitors at this hour often report more pronounced phenomena, shadowy figures appearing among graves, soft laughter that drifts through the air, and footsteps echoing where no one walks. Cold drafts seem to follow along paths lined with monuments, a physical reminder of the cemetery's intangible presence. The history of the cemetery deepens its mysterious reputation. Established in the 19th century, it has been the final resting place for both prominent citizens and ordinary families. Epidemics, war, and personal tragedies have left subtle imprints on the landscape, contributing to the sensations that visitors sometimes experience. Each grave carries a story, and together they form a network of memory that the living can sense, even if not always understand. The design of the cemetery encourages exploration and contemplation. Curving lanes lead past grand mausoleums, modest headstones, and quiet groves of trees. Reflections, pools, and gardened areas offer serene spaces, yet even here, the boundary between the natural and the supernatural feels thin. The play of shadows across monuments, the sound of wind through branches, and the occasional flicker of unexplained light combine to create an atmosphere where the senses are heightened, and the imagination becomes attuned to possibilities beyond the ordinary. The play of shadows across monuments, the sound of wind through branches, and the occasional flicker of unexplained light combine to create an atmosphere where the senses are heightened, and the imagination becomes attuned to possibilities beyond the ordinary. The play of shadows across monuments, the sound of wind through branches, and the occasional flicker of unexplained light combine to create an atmosphere where the senses are heightened, and the imagination becomes attuned to possibilities beyond the ordinary. Visitors often recount subtle experiences that are both haunting and gentle. Figures of children seem to move between headstones, unseen yet felt, their presence suggested by fleeting glimpses or the echo of soft laughter. Apparitions of mourners pause by graves, sometimes seeming unaware of those passing by. Cold drafts and sudden drops in temperature punctuate quiet walks along the pathways. These phenomena are never aggressive, but they leave a lasting impression, encouraging reflection on the interplay between life, death, and memory. At night, the cemetery is cloaked in darkness, the long shadows of trees stretching across paths and monuments. The hush of the surroundings is occasionally broken by natural sounds that seem amplified in the stillness. Footsteps, whispers, and rustling leaves can take on an uncanny quality. Lights from the surrounding city are distant, leaving the cemetery in near total quiet, a space where the past seems to breathe gently among the living. The atmosphere becomes immersive, drawing visitors into a contemplative state where history and the unexplained blend seamlessly. Historic City Cemetery endures as a space of reverence, history, and subtle mystery. Its trees, tombs, and quiet paths offer both beauty and an air of quiet suspense. Visitors leave with a sense of awe and reflection, aware that within this cemetery, shadowy figures, ghostly laughter, and unexplained sensations are reminders that memory lingers, and that those who have passed remain a subtle presence among the living. Elmwood Cemetery in Michigan stretches across rolling grounds where history and memory intertwine among moss-covered tombstones and towering trees. The air carries a faint chill, and the quiet is punctuated by the rustle of leaves and the distant call of night birds. This cemetery has long been a resting place for early settlers, pioneers whose lives shaped the community and whose stories linger beyond the grave. Walking through the winding paths, visitors often feel an uncanny presence, a sense that the past remains vividly alive. Figures in period clothing have been reported moving among the gravestones, their forms fleeting and ethereal. Some appear to wander slowly, as if retracing familiar steps, while others pause, standing silently in contemplation before tombs that have weathered centuries. Shadows stretch unnaturally in the fading light, merging with the natural contours of the grounds and creating the impression that history itself walks alongside the living. Phantom footsteps are frequently heard along the gravel paths, echoing in places where no one else treads. These sounds are sometimes rhythmic, reminiscent of people walking in pairs or groups, and sometimes singular, deliberate, and insistent. Visitors describe the footsteps as passing close by, stopping, and then fading into the distance, leaving an unsettling yet fascinating impression of unseen life. The auditory phenomena are often accompanied by a subtle drop in temperature, as cold gusts of wind sweep across the graves and the skeletal branches of the trees. Elmwood Cemetery preserves more than the memories of individuals. It maintains a connection to the early days of the settlement. Many of the oldest markers are engraved with names and dates that trace back to the founding families of the area. Some stones bear intricate carvings, symbols of faith, or motifs representing lives lived fully yet abruptly ended. In the stillness of evening, these monuments seem to whisper the stories of those they commemorate. And the attentive visitor may sense the weight of history pressing gently against the present. Reports of apparitions here are both frequent and varied. Some witnesses describe seeing women in long dresses of the 19th century, moving through the misty air as if searching for something lost. Men in old coats and hats have been observed near family plots, their movements deliberate and purposeful, disappearing when approached. Children have also been seen running between gravestones, laughing softly, only to vanish behind the shadowed trunks of ancient oaks. Each encounter is brief yet leaves a lingering sense of connection, as if the cemetery itself is a bridge between centuries. At night, Elmwood Cemetery takes on a more intense and immersive atmosphere. Moonlight filters through the trees, casting dappled patterns across the uneven ground. Fog often rises from the low areas, curling around gravestones and enveloping the paths in a surreal, dreamlike veil. This interplay of light, shadow, and mist creates conditions where the imagination merges with reality, and fleeting figures or movements can seem more tangible than ever. The natural environment enhances the eerie yet captivating experience, giving visitors a profound sense of the presence of those who rest here. The cemetery is also a place where stories of the early settlers intertwine with legend and personal experience. Tales of apparitions pausing by certain family plots, soft whispers echoing from the older sections, and figures emerging along the perimeter of the grounds have persisted for generations. Each account adds to the rich tapestry of Elmwood Cemetery, suggesting that the spirits of the past remain attentive, moving quietly among the living while preserving the memory of lives once vibrant and essential to the community. Walking through Elmwood is a journey through both history and the unexplained. The gravel paths, lined with weathered stones and shaded by ancient trees, invite quiet reflection. As visitors move deeper into the cemetery, the sensation of being observed or accompanied intensifies. Shadows shift in ways that seem deliberate, and the occasional flicker of light along the paths creates an illusion of movement where none should exist. These subtle, immersive experiences engage the senses and encourage contemplation of the passage of time and the persistence of memory. In the early morning or late evening, the cemetery transforms into a stage for fleeting encounters. Figures appear and vanish among the gravestones, footsteps resonate across empty lanes. And the whisper of the wind through the trees carries an almost human cadence. These phenomena are never threatening, but they are undeniably present, leaving an impression of a world just out of reach, where the living and the dead coexist in a delicate balance. Elmwood Cemetery embodies the quiet persistence of memory and the enduring presence of those who have gone before. These phenomena are never threatening, but they are undeniably present, leaving an impression of a world just out of reach, where the living and the dead coexist in a delicate balance. Elmwood Cemetery embodies the quiet persistence of memory and the enduring presence of those who have gone before. For those who visit with respect and attentiveness, Elmwood Cemetery offers a deeply immersive experience. The combination of history, natural beauty, and subtle supernatural phenomena creates a unique environment where storytelling becomes tangible and every step holds potential discovery. Apparitions, phantom footsteps, and shifting shadows all contribute to a cinematic sense of the past alive in the present. The cemetery stands as a testament to lives remembered, histories preserved, and the enduring mysteries that surround us when we pause to listen carefully. Ultimately, Elmwood Cemetery is more than a resting place. It is a living chronicle of early settlers and the community they built, where the echoes of the past emerge through both visual and auditory impressions. The spirits of those who lived long ago continue to move through the grounds, shaping an experience that is contemplative, haunting, and profoundly moving. Visitors leave with a sense of having traversed time itself, walking among history and the unseen, where the presence of the past remains as palpable as the stones beneath their feet. Riverview Cemetery stretches along the quiet banks of a winding river, its grounds steeped in history and shadowed by stories of tragedy. Established long ago, the cemetery has witnessed countless lives and losses, with headstones marking the resting places of families, children, and those whose deaths were sudden and untimely. The air carries a weight that is almost tangible, a sense of lingering memory that seems to seep from the earth itself. Visitors to Riverview Cemetery often speak of an atmosphere thick with anticipation, a quiet that is both peaceful and unsettling. The rustle of leaves in the wind or the distant call of a bird can take on a strange significance here. Shadows move in unexpected ways, and the paths, lined with aged trees and weathered gravestones, seem to twist and turn as if leading wanderers into unknown territory. The cemetery has long been associated with tragic accidents that have left their mark on the community. Tales of lives lost to sudden events, from river mishaps to unforeseen misfortunes, have woven themselves into the identity of the grounds. It is said that some of those who perished under such circumstances remain present, their energies lingering in the spaces where their stories ended. Witnesses describe fleeting glimpses of figures that vanish when approached, shadows that do not correspond to any living form, and the unsettling feeling of being watched when no one else is around. Witnesses describe fleeting glimpses of figures that vanish when approached, shadows that do not correspond to any living form, and the unsettling feeling of being watched when no one else is around. On foggy evenings, the cemetery transforms into a realm of mystery. Mist drifts low across the headstones, curling around statues and monuments, obscuring familiar paths and giving the landscape an ethereal quality. In this veil of mist, many have reported seeing glowing eyes peering from the darkness. Eyes that seem to follow movements with a quiet intensity. The effect is both chilling and compelling, drawing visitors deeper into the maze of history and memory. Whispers are another phenomenon commonly experienced at Riverview. Unseen voices seem to call names, soft and indistinct, lingering just beyond the edge of comprehension. Some say these are echoes of past lives, fragments of conversations carried through time, or manifestations of souls who remain tethered to the world they once knew. The whispers often appear when least expected, prompting visitors to pause and look around, searching for a source that never materializes. The layout of Riverview Cemetery contributes to its haunting presence. Winding pathways lead through dense groves of old trees, creating pockets of shadow where sunlight rarely penetrates. The river nearby adds to the atmosphere, its surface reflecting moonlight and mist in ways that make the night seem alive with movement. Along the banks, monuments and obelisks stand as silent witnesses to history, their surfaces etched with names and dates that tell stories of joy, loss, and endurance. Among the oldest sections, the air grows cooler and the atmosphere more charged. Headstones lean with age, some partially covered in moss, while the ground is uneven from decades of settling. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, a coldness that seems to follow them along the pathways. Shadows here appear more substantial, forming vague human shapes that disappear when observed directly. It is in these areas that Riverview Cemetery's reputation for hauntings is most pronounced, drawing those with curiosity or courage to explore its hidden corners. Even in daylight, the cemetery retains an aura of mystery. Sunlight filtering through the branches creates shifting patterns on the ground, and the rustle of leaves can sound eerily like movement just beyond perception. Visitors describe the sensation of stepping into a space where time feels fluid, where past and present overlap, and where the memory of those who came before is felt rather than seen. The monuments, statues, and simple markers collectively create a landscape that is both beautiful and quietly unsettling. Nightfall amplifies these experiences. Under a darkening sky, the fog thickens and shadows lengthen, while the sound of the river becomes more pronounced, echoing across the grounds. Figures appear at the periphery of vision, lingering near headstones, along paths, and beneath the old trees. Some are glimpsed for only a moment before dissolving into darkness, while others seem to move in deliberate patterns, as though retracing familiar steps. Whispers grow clearer to some, calling names or repeating fragments of words, yet the source remains elusive. Riverview Cemetery is more than a resting place for the departed. It is a place where history and memory intertwine with the unexplained, creating an atmosphere charged with presence and possibility. Every shadow, every whisper, and every unexpected chill serves as a reminder of the lives that ended too soon, and the lingering impact of tragedy. For those who walk its paths, Riverview offers an experience that is at once reflective and haunting. A meeting of past and present where the ordinary meets the extraordinary. Visitors depart with a mixture of reverence and unease. The cemetery impresses not only through its historical significance and natural beauty, but also through the subtle phenomena that persist, shaping the way the grounds are experienced. Glowing eyes in the darkness, whispers that call from unseen corners, and fleeting glimpses of shadowy forms ensure that Riverview Cemetery remains a place where the past is never truly gone, and where the stories of tragedy and presence continue to unfold with each visit. Rose Hill Cemetery in Tennessee stretches across rolling hills, its landscape dotted with weathered headstones, ornate monuments, and ancient oaks that cast long shadows in the fading light. Established decades ago, the cemetery holds the memories of countless lives, some lost tragically and others under mysterious circumstances. The air is thick with history, and as evening approaches, a profound stillness settles across the grounds, broken only by the rustling of leaves and distant calls of nocturnal birds. Visitors who wander the cemetery after dark often report sudden chills, a sensation of cold that seems to move along the pathways without warning. The temperature drops in places where no shade or wind is present, creating an eerie contrast against the calm night. These unexplained cold spots seem to signal the presence of something unseen, lingering among the monuments and grave markers. Many who have experienced these sensations describe a feeling of being watched, as if the spirits of the departed are aware of every step. Shadowy figures are often reported moving silently among the gravestones, their forms indistinct yet undeniably human. They appear and vanish with no trace, gliding along the paths or standing motionless in the distance, before dissolving into the darkness. Witnesses describe the figures as fleeting, yet their presence leaves a deep impression, a reminder that the cemetery is a space where the living and the departed coexist in subtle ways. The cemetery is home to numerous tragic histories, including violent deaths and murders that have left an indelible mark on the area. These stories are whispered among locals and visitors alike, and the weight of past suffering seems to permeate the grounds. Some graves are marked by elaborate monuments, while others are modest, yet each carries the emotional residue of lives ended too soon. It is this mixture of sorrow and memory that contributes to the cemetery's haunting atmosphere. Even in daylight, the cemetery exudes a somber presence. Sunlight filters through the branches of old trees, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow across the headstones. The effect can make ordinary monuments appear almost animated, their forms flickering and changing with the movement of the sun. This interplay of light and shadow intensifies at dusk, as the last rays fade and darkness begins to envelop the landscape, giving rise to experiences that visitors cannot easily explain. Sounds in Rose Hill Cemetery often add to the sense of unease. Footsteps echo on empty paths where no one walks, and the wind carries whispers that seem to emerge from nowhere. Faint rustlings or the creak of gates can be heard, even when the cemetery is completely silent. These subtle auditory phenomena heighten the feeling that the cemetery is alive with the unseen, offering glimpses into a world that exists parallel to our own. Many visitors speak of a sensation that cannot be easily described. A presence that brushes against the mind and senses without manifesting fully. This feeling is often accompanied by sudden emotional shifts. A wave of sadness or anxiety that seems to emanate from the ground itself. It is as if the sorrow of the past lingers in the air, interacting with the living in ways both profound and unsettling. The cemetery's architecture and layout contribute to its haunting nature. Winding paths lead through clusters of monuments, guiding visitors past graves that are both elaborate and understated. The combination of natural and constructed elements, old oaks, gently rolling hills, stone markers, and iron fences creates pockets of isolation where the supernatural is said to be more active. Those who explore these areas report glimpses of figures disappearing behind monuments, or the sensation of being followed even when walking alone. At night, Rose Hill Cemetery transforms into a place where the boundary between the living and the dead seems thin. Shadows stretch and move in unnatural ways, cold spots become more pronounced, and the whispers of the past grow louder in the imagination. It is a space where history, emotion, and the unexplained converge, drawing visitors into a narrative of mystery that cannot be fully understood. Despite the fear and unease that the cemetery can inspire, it also commands respect. The lives remembered here, and the tragedies that occurred, create an atmosphere of reflection and reverence. Visitors are reminded of the fragility of life and the enduring presence of memory. Each encounter with a shadow, each inexplicable chill, and each fleeting sound reinforces the sense that Rose Hill Cemetery is more than a resting place. It is a living monument to the intersection of history, sorrow, and the unexplained. Rose Hill Cemetery in Tennessee remains a place where the past is palpable, and where the echoes of tragic events continue to resonate. Its shadowy figures, sudden cold spots, and lingering presence offer an immersive experience for those willing to walk its paths. The cemetery is not only a testament to lives lost but also a reminder that memory and history can linger long after the living have gone, leaving traces that may be glimpsed by those who venture into the darkness. Sleepy Hollow Burial Grounds in Connecticut sits quietly amidst tall oaks and rolling hills. A place where history is etched into stone and the past seems to linger in the shadows. The cemetery, dating back to the Civil War era, holds the remains of soldiers, townspeople, and generations of families. Walking along its winding paths, one is immediately struck by the serenity, yet beneath the calm lies an atmosphere charged with the weight of memory and the whispers of what once was. The towering trees cast long shadows across weathered headstones, their branches swaying in the wind with a rhythm that echoes faintly through the grounds. Sunlight filters through the leaves in shifting patterns, illuminating moss-covered monuments and engraved names that have endured for centuries. In this interplay of light and shadow, visitors often describe the sensation of being watched, a subtle awareness that the cemetery is alive with more than just the rustle of leaves. Figures have been seen at the edges of vision, fleeting shapes that vanish when approached, leaving only the faintest impression that someone or something lingers unseen. Among the tombstones and monuments, the stories of the past seem to seep from the earth itself. Soldiers who fought in the Civil War, their bravery and sacrifice memorialized in carefully tended graves, are said to walk silently along the paths. Their presence marked by sudden chills and the faint echo of footsteps where none should be. Occasionally, glowing orbs appear near these monuments, drifting silently among the graves as if carrying messages from another time. The energy of the cemetery is palpable, a quiet reminder that history and memory persist long after the living have moved on. Even in the daylight, Sleepy Hollow Burial Grounds carries a sense of unease beneath its beauty. The natural sounds of birds, wind, and distant traffic are amplified in the hushed environment, making each movement or noise more pronounced. Visitors have reported glimpses of shadowy shapes gliding among the headstones, subtle yet unmistakable. These figures are never threatening, but their presence leaves an impression, a lingering awareness that the cemetery is more than a place of rest. It is a bridge between the past and present, where echoes of history can be felt in ways that defy explanation. As evening descends, the cemetery transforms further. The fading light casts long, eerie shadows, turning familiar monuments into haunting silhouettes. Paths that were once sunlit become corridors of darkness. And the trees overhead form a dense canopy that seems to absorb sound and movement. In this quiet, subtle phenomena become more pronounced. Apparitions of soldiers have been seen pacing near their graves. Glowing orbs drift along the edges of pathways. And shadowy shapes move silently between monuments. Sudden chills and unexplained breezes follow visitors as they navigate the twisting lanes, heightening awareness of the unseen. The history of Sleepy Hollow Burial Grounds contributes greatly to its mysterious aura. Established in the 19th century, the cemetery was witness to epidemics, wars, and personal tragedies that have left an invisible imprint upon the grounds. Each tombstone tells a story of life, loss, and remembrance, and collectively they form a landscape where memory is tangible. The Civil War graves, in particular, carry an energy that visitors describe as distinct and poignant, as if the sacrifices of the past continue to resonate in the stillness of the cemetery. The layout of the burial grounds encourages exploration and reflection. Yet even these serene areas carry an undertone of unease, can create the illusion of movement. And in this heightened state, the presence of the unexplained becomes more tangible. Nightfall in Sleepy Hollow Burial Grounds is particularly immersive. The moon casts silver light across the grounds, revealing details in monuments and trees that remain hidden by day. Every sound is amplified, every movement more pronounced, and the air grows cooler as shadows deepen. Visitors have reported seeing figures of soldiers standing silently beside their graves, or shadowy shapes slipping between the monuments. Glowing orbs float along paths as if guiding the way, while whispers drift faintly through the trees. These subtle signs create an Sleepy Hollow Burial Grounds endures as a place where history, memory, and subtle supernatural phenomena converge. Its ancient trees, weathered tombs, and quiet paths offer a landscape rich with both beauty and mystery. Visitors leave with a sense of reverence, heightened awareness, and wonder, aware that within these grounds, the past remains present. Shadowy figures, glowing orbs, and the echoes of history are constant reminders that Sleepy Hollow is not just a resting place for the departed, but a space where the stories of those who came before continue to be felt, quietly and persistently, among the living. Elmwood Cemetery in North Carolina rests quietly beneath towering oaks and weeping willows, a place where history and memory converge among weathered tombstones and moss-covered monuments. The grounds are vast and winding, each path leading through rows of markers that tell stories of lives long past. The air is thick with stillness, occasionally broken by the whisper of wind through the branches or the distant call of a night bird. Visitors often describe a feeling of being watched, as though the past has not entirely released its hold. Figures in old clothing are said to move silently between gravestones, their forms appearing and vanishing like fleeting shadows. Sometimes they are seen alone, pausing as if in thought or remembrance, and at other times in small groups, as though continuing rituals from another era. The atmosphere is both somber and captivating, drawing those who walk its paths into a deeper awareness of time and mortality. Phantom footsteps echo along gravel lanes, shifting from soft, hesitant taps to deliberate, measured strides. These sounds often come from directions where no one else is present, circling and fading into the darkness. Some visitors have felt sudden chills, accompanied by a sense of presence that is impossible to explain. The combination of auditory and sensory phenomena creates an immersive experience, heightening the awareness of unseen inhabitants who linger long after their mortal lives ended. Many of the gravestones date back to the early days of the town, bearing names and dates that chart the growth of the community. And the tragedies endured along the way. Intricate carvings and symbols hint at personal stories and family legacies. Each stone a silent witness to the passage of generations. In the fading light of evening, these markers seem to whisper their histories. And the attentive visitor may feel the weight of countless untold stories pressing gently against the present. Apparitions reported here are varied and compelling. Some see women in long dresses from the 19th century, gliding between monuments with quiet grace. Men in coats and hats appear near family plots, standing briefly before disappearing as though aware of being observed. Children have been glimpsed running between stones, their laughter soft and ephemeral, fading into the still air. These encounters are never threatening, yet they leave a lingering sense of connection, as if the cemetery itself holds the memories of those who once lived in the community. At night, the environment transforms. Moonlight filters through the tree canopy, casting elongated shadows across the uneven terrain. Fog often rises from the low areas, curling around gravestones and enveloping pathways in a dreamlike haze. This interplay of light and shadow creates an atmosphere in which fleeting figures or movements appear more tangible than reality itself. The natural surroundings, combined with the cemetery's history, heighten the sensation of stepping into a space where the living and the dead share the same ground. The stories of Elmwood Cemetery are woven from generations of observation and personal experience. Accounts of ghostly figures pausing by certain tombs, soft whispers echoing through the older sections. And silhouettes emerging along the edges of the grounds persist over time. Each report contributes to the rich tapestry of the cemetery, suggesting that those who rest here continue to observe. Their presence a subtle reminder of life, loss, and memory. Walking through Elmwood is a journey through both history and the unexplained. Gravel paths wind among weathered stones and shaded alcoves, inviting quiet reflection. As one moves deeper into the cemetery, the sensation of being accompanied grows stronger. Shadows shift in ways that feel intentional, and occasional glimmers of light along the pathways suggest movements where none should exist. These subtle, immersive experiences engage the senses and encourage contemplation of the past, the present, and the persistence of memory. In the early morning or late evening, the cemetery becomes a stage for encounters both visual and auditory. Figures appear and vanish among the tombstones, footsteps echo across empty lanes, and whispers seem to ride the wind. These phenomena, while never menacing, create a profound sense of presence, allowing visitors to experience a connection with the people and stories that shaped the community long ago. The cemetery embodies the quiet endurance of memory and the lingering influence of those who came before. For those who enter with respect and attentiveness, Elmwood Cemetery offers a deeply immersive experience. The combination of history, natural beauty, and subtle supernatural phenomena creates an environment where storytelling feels tangible. Apparitions, phantom footsteps, and shifting shadows contribute to a cinematic sense of the past alive in the present. Every stone, every path, every rustle of leaves invites reflection, drawing visitors into a world where the living and the unseen coexist. Ultimately, Elmwood Cemetery is more than a resting place. It is a living testament to lives remembered, histories preserved, and mysteries that continue to captivate. Visitors leave with the impression of having traveled through time itself, walking among stories, memories, and unseen presences that endure long after the final chapter of life has ended. Magnolia Cemetery in Charleston, South Carolina, stretches across shaded grounds, lined with centuries-old trees and historic graves. Established long ago, it holds the stories of generations. From the founders of the city to soldiers who fought in conflicts that shaped the nation. The air is thick with history, carrying the weight of countless lives, and the quiet presence of those who have passed. Visitors walking along the winding paths often describe a feeling that the cemetery is alive with memory. The rustling of leaves and the soft creak of branches seem to echo in ways that suggest unseen observers. Shadows fall differently here, stretching across tombstones and monuments, creating an atmosphere that is both solemn and mysterious. Among the most notable accounts are sightings of Confederate soldiers appearing along the paths at night. Figures in period uniforms have been glimpsed standing silently near old monuments or moving slowly across open spaces. These apparitions often seem unaware of the living, carrying the weight of duty and loss that linger long after their time. Some visitors describe the sudden appearance of a soldier at the edge of their vision, only for him to vanish when approached, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Mourners from past eras are said to walk the grounds as well. Figures dressed in somber clothing, sometimes blurred at the edges as if caught between worlds, move along avenues lined with ornate graves. Their presence is often accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, a cold that seems to trace the path they take, lingering even after they have disappeared. The chill, subtle but unmistakable, adds to the feeling that Magnolia Cemetery is a place where history and the unexplained meet. The layout of the cemetery enhances its haunting beauty. Marble statues and towering monuments stand like sentinels, casting long shadows on the ground. Spanish moss drapes from oak branches, swaying gently in the breeze. In the fading light of evening, these elements combine to create a landscape. A space where the ordinary and the otherworldly coexist. Visitors report hearing faint footsteps when no one else is present. Soft echoes that follow them along paths and around corners. Some describe hearing whispers carried on the wind, voices that seem distant yet intimate, calling names or repeating fragments of conversations from long ago. These phenomena are most often reported near the graves of soldiers or prominent families, suggesting a lingering connection between the living and the dead. Magnolia Cemetery also carries a sense of movement in the quietest moments. Leaves tremble and branches sway without wind, and shadows shift subtly across the ground. These small signs, easily overlooked by the unobservant, can be unnerving when experienced in the stillness of night. The interplay of light and shadow, sound and silence, creates a dynamic environment where history feels alive, and the presence of past lives is tangible. Even in daylight, the cemetery holds a captivating and somber energy. Sunlight illuminating monuments and headstones in a way that highlights their age and significance. The sounds of the city fade behind the trees, leaving a quiet that is almost sacred. In this space, visitors sense the passage of time, the weight of memory, and the continuity of life and death. At night, the experience intensifies. Figures become more distinct in low light. And the temperature drops noticeably along certain avenues. Visitors often feel a heightened awareness of their surroundings, sensing that the cemetery is more than a place for the deceased, but a meeting point for the living and the unseen. The stories of Confederate soldiers and grieving mourners create a narrative that unfolds with each visit, leaving impressions that linger long after leaving the grounds. Magnolia Cemetery is more than a historical site. It is a landscape of memory, emotion, and mystery. Each monument and headstone tells a story, and each visitor adds to the living history of the place. The apparitions, cold spots, and fleeting sounds serve as reminders of lives once lived, and of histories that remain present, quietly influencing the atmosphere. Walking through Magnolia Cemetery, one cannot help but feel connected to the past. The blend of natural beauty, historic significance, and unexplained phenomena creates an experience that is reflective and haunting. Every shadow, whisper, and sudden chill reinforces the sense that this cemetery is alive in its own way, preserving the presence of those who came before, and inviting the living to bear witness to the stories that endure through time. Visitors leave Magnolia Cemetery with a mixture of reverence and curiosity, carrying the impressions of what they have seen and felt. The combination of history, atmosphere, and subtle paranormal activity ensures that the cemetery remains a place of fascination and mystery. It is a site where the past is never truly gone, and where every visitor encounters the enduring echoes of those who once walked its paths. Mount Moriah Cemetery in Pennsylvania sprawls across rolling hills, a quiet testament to generations long past. Weathered headstones rise from the earth, some leaning at precarious angles, others adorned with intricate carvings that have faded with time. Ancient trees dot the landscape, their branches stretching over narrow paths, casting long shadows that dance with the movement of the wind. The cemetery carries the weight of countless stories, many marked by tragedy and loss, their echoes lingering in the air. As dusk approaches, a sense of stillness settles over the grounds. The fading light paints the cemetery in muted tones, and the gentle rustle of leaves becomes amplified. Visitors often describe sudden chills that appear without warning, a cold that seems to move along abandoned paths, brushing against the skin and drawing the senses into heightened awareness. It is in these moments that the presence of the past feels most tangible, as though the lives once buried here still walk among the living. Shadowy figures are a frequent occurrence, appearing and disappearing without explanation. They move along pathways or linger near monuments, their forms indistinct yet undeniably human. Witnesses recount glimpses of these figures from the corner of their eyes, vanishing when approached, leaving only an unsettling awareness that Sumania or Something has been nearby. These fleeting sightings are often accompanied by the faint sound of footsteps echoing across empty expanses, a rhythm that follows travelers through the silent grounds. Mount Moriah is steeped in tales of tragic deaths, from accidents to untimely passings, each story woven into the fabric of the cemetery. The emotions of these histories seem to hang in the air, creating pockets of unease that sensitive visitors can feel. Some report sudden waves of sorrow or anxiety that rise inexplicably, as if the earth itself remembers the grief that occurred there. The weight of these experiences gives the cemetery a presence that is both somber and compelling. Glowing lights are often seen along the older sections of the cemetery. Small orbs that drift near gravestones or hover over pathways. Their origins remain a mystery, and while they emit a soft, ethereal illumination, they vanish when approached. These lights cast fleeting shadows and reflections that further blur the boundary between the natural and the supernatural. They are a constant reminder that Mount Moriah holds secrets that defy easy explanation, and that the spirits of the past may still linger, unwilling or unable to move on completely. This is Mount Moriah, a place where the veil between worlds is thin. Even during daylight hours, the cemetery possesses an atmosphere that can feel otherworldly. Sunlight filters through the thick canopy of trees, casting patterns of light and shadow across monuments and paths. The interplay of illumination can make ordinary gravestones seem alive, their features shifting and changing with the movement of the sun. It is in these moments of subtle illusion that visitors often feel the cemeteria's quiet energy, sensing a presence that exists beyond the tangible world. Sounds in Mount Moriah are often disorienting. The wind carries whispers that seem to come from unseen sources. And the creak of iron gates or the soft clatter of debris can occur in places where no one is present. Footsteps echo along abandoned lanes, yet no traveler walks there. These auditory phenomena heighten the sensation of being surrounded by unseen observers, creating a feeling that the cemetery is alive with memories that resist silence. The layout of the cemetery contributes to its enigmatic aura, and the natural evolution of the grounds over decades, or sudden changes in temperature, subtle cues that the space remains charged with energy from the past. Night transforms Mount Moriah into a place where the veil between the living and the departed feels thin. Shadows stretch unnaturally, cold spots deepen, and whispers seem to gain clarity in the stillness. Figures drift silently through the darkness, sometimes pausing as if observing the living before fading once more. The combination of sight, sound, and sensation creates a cinematic experience that captivates and unnerves, drawing visitors into a world where history, memory, and the unexplained converge. Despite the eerie occurrences, Mount Moriah Cemetery commands respect. Each headstone, each monument, represents a life once lived and a story that continues to resonate. The presence of shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, and glowing lights is intertwined with the narratives of those buried here, creating a unique space where the past remains palpable for those who walk its paths with awareness and care. Mount Moriah offers an immersive journey into the lingering energy of history, a place where the memory of the departed is never far away, and where the mysteries of the past continue to quietly unfold. Cemeteries are meant to be places of rest, yet these haunted locations remind us that the past does not always stay buried. Every shadow, whisper, and cold gust of wind is a reminder that spirits linger where they are remembered or forgotten. Next time you walk among tombstones, remember these haunted cemeteries. Would you dare to explore an old mausoleum or wander a historic path alone at night, knowing restless spirits may be watching from the shadows? Some cemeteries offer more than quiet beauty, they hold tragedies, stories, and encounters with the unknown that will haunt your mind long after you leave.